Hello and welcome, everybody. This is going to be just kind of a chill hangout stream, no topics or anything, just me hanging out with you guys. You can ask me any questions you want. And I've also brought a few people from the Discord in to just kind of have a nice chill conversation. So, without further ado, allow me to first bring in one of my guests. Welcome, Abigail.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Glad to have you. And please welcome the man known only as Lolly.
Hello. I am also known as Shuriken Man because I cannot make these pictures work.
Apparently not.
Ah, well.
All right. Alrighty. So how's y'all's days going?
Looks like my writer's block for the last month and a half is written. I'm 7,000 words into a story idea I got a couple days ago.
Woo! It's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Writer's block's a bitch.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody's getting a call.
From a phone number I don't recognize, so I'm putting it on voicemail. And I forgot my phone is not muted. Sorry.
Hey, Matt Courier 6. You can come on. The StreamYard link's open. We're down to have you. So, this is kind of just open forum for you guys. Though I might have some couple of questions for you guys, just kind of like as an author to the fellow to readers. But like, let's start with you guys. You guys, what would you like to ask me?
Well, I guess the first thing that is worth asking somebody that is I guess we call you a successful author. Would that be an unfair assessment?
I'm fairly successful. I need to check like how I've at least published 11 books, well, 10 books and one novella on Amazon. So I hope that I'm decently could be considered successful. I'm at least prolific.
And I'm too lazy to look up the definition. So let's just go with you being a fairly successful author. Where do you start when it comes to writing books? Do you just start with an idea, or do you build up a skeleton of a story first?
I kind of start with an idea and then build the skeleton around the idea. That's kind of how it works. I know that one of my books was a 4-book series that I wrote was originally a kind of a different take on like a Dark-Lord story using the skeleton of the Angmar plot. It's the Angmar story from the history of Lord of the Rings. That kind of didn't take the same route, but took at least similar things from it. Oh man. Okay. Great minds think alike, it seems. I just asked the same question. That's actually really funny. Okay.
Just noticed it.
So, I'd say that like with that one, I was kind of just interested, and then I kept writing, and I realized that I could write more in this story and then I did start writing Queen of Spring before I watched Game of Thrones season 8. And Game of Thrones season 8 was such a terrible use of undead soldiers that I'm like, all right, I have this to beat. Great. I'm going to beat this very, very easily. And so some of the later battles I reconfigured to kind of utilize some interesting tactics and logistical concerns, such as the undead not needing a supply line, whereas the humans, dwarves, elves, and orcs that are coming up north need to consistently worry about supplies throughout the whole thing and are constantly pushing their way through heavy snowdrifts. And they're just not able to, and they even have to start killing their livestock, their horses, and basically start a ballot to say, okay, whose horse is going to be eaten this week.
Anyone got straws?
Yeah, pretty much. And so that's kind of the idea that kind of eventually it morphed into, because I knew that what I wanted to do with that one was kind of focus in on another Dark Lord type trope where rather than a Dark Lord who's out to destroy the world because I'm evil, I wanted to do something with a guy who is tired of existence and wants people to kill him, but he can't kill himself because he's basically already dead. He just needs somebody to release him from his living death, essentially. And there's no other way to do that but then by provoking all of the nations of the world to come at him.
Interesting. Kind of reminds me of Alucard from the Hellsing anime/manga, where his whole thing is that he wants to die. So when the opportunity presents itself, especially against a human, he gets I don't want to say an orgasm, but he gets a real thrill for it. And then whenever he fights something undead or something that has made a bargain with the devil, he gets all moody and stuff.
Okay. So Mark and Mad Courier 3, do you mean what do you mean by start a story? Do you mean by how do I usually start off a story structurally, or with the foundations of an idea, just so I know what you mean? So, but to kind of answer structurally, it usually depends on the book. I generally will try to have some kind of, usually kind of the general rule of thumb is have some kind of hook with your writing. You have to make sure that the audience is interested in what you're writing. So you got to have something that is either mystical, political, or a mystery, in order to figure out, okay, the audience is now hooked. How do I keep that hook throughout the story? But there has to be some kind of hook in the beginning. Brandon Sanderson specifically is very, very good at this, where every single book he'll start like that. He'll throw you in really quickly. And I think the best example is Way of Kings, where he starts off with, you're in the head of this assassin type guy, and he's going after the king. And it's this incredible action sequence that I have never, that just it blew my mind when I first listened to it. I was just like, this is so awesome. And then the book just kept getting better, and then the sequels kept getting even better and better and better. But yeah, thank you for that question. That was a good one.
That's actually something I find that is very, how should I say it? It's something that when it comes to reader and writer, it usually, at least for me, lands on the same note in terms of the hook. The hook that makes me want to write is usually also a note I'd want to advertise to somebody else to make them read it. So I guess if the idea for your writing is something more abstract, that's not immediately like something that grabs the reader, I guess it is good to have a pitch just in case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I'm still kind of developing Hammer of the Waters. Like I have the villains pretty well figured out. I'm just working on like the protagonists because that's usually kind of where I start is the bad guys for but sometimes I'll also start with the heroes. But this time I've focused on like kind of started off with the antagonist. I'm debating whether or not to move the antagonist introduction to later in the book or kind of have just one taster and then not have them show up in person for a while.
Well, that's not good. I was about to say, not good. That's not a bad starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Since, well, the antagonist is the one that has to move the story forward. At least the one that sets it in motion by its definition. So it's usually good to start at least focusing somewhat on their role in the story. Or you can do this kind of thing where you just focus on the pitch for whatever power fantasy they want to go with. And then all the antagonists that show up is just there to be swept aside. And as a result, those books usually don't last more than maybe 2-3 days in people's conscious, and then they go away.
Yeah, I think one of the things with isekai is there aren't really stakes generally. There's only like a few isekai type books like Narnia, and Alice in Wonderland that have stayed in the collective consciousness of humanity. Most everything else, like Adventures Wanted and a few other books, kind of just fade into obscurity.
Well, it's kind of a case of having a bad definition, because isekai in Japanese means going to a better world. So by definition, you'd be going from your current world into a better world. So isekai having stakes would kind of be contrary to the very definition of its how people, at least in Japan, understand isekai. Where we think in another world, it would actually be in a better world. So it having a lot of stakes is usually going against the waves, so to say.
Interesting. I've been kind of toying around with kind of an idea of like a Narnia book where there's actual death that happens, where like one of the kids dies partway through.
You can't do that. You get canceled immediately. How dare you?
Don't forget to make them one of the more likable ones so it really cuts to the heart.
I was gonna say at least make them likable before you got them, but Abigail just goes, "Oh, make sure it's the likable ones that die first."
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking like, what if kind of like somebody got thrown into like a kind of a fantasy a version of Narnia that I guess was more Game of Thrones, had a more Game of Thrones mentality than a C.S. Lewis mentality.
I.e. up the reading age a bit, I guess is what I'd say. You know, from middle grade to, I guess, grown-up fantasy or something. Maybe ground it, the fantastical elements some more. Make it like hard.
Yeah. Like kind of make the centaurs like more like animalistic, I guess. Kind of actually make them look more like Staluk from Chaotic, where he's got a horse head along with human arms. Starting the story, balance that's a very, very good question. I would say in terms of starting a story, balancing the hook. Okay. I think that one thing that is critical to I think that one thing that's critical is kind of just partially just have the characters kind of walk around their world casually and just looking at it like it's a camera, and maybe like use their eyes like it's a camera is usually how I describe how I'll usually like do a little bit of exposition about the world. Since the second you resort to, as you know, your reader are going to say, "Oh, hack." That's kind of the hack writer's guide. Right? It's like rule number 1: always do this.
Well, that and Sarah, dead time sentences, big no-nos.
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of like I need to do is when I set up the characters, I need to kind of, I guess, do something that usually there's something that is a mystery or some kind of event that builds sympathy with the audience. An example is Kaladin Stormblessed in The Way of Kings, where you see him in a commander position in the prologue, or one of the prologues. There's like 3 prologues in that prologue. And then you see him in a slave position in the next. So part of it is carefully plan out your mysteries. You don't have to plan out everything in the plot. Not necessarily. If that doesn't work for you, do what works for you. However, if you're going to have twists and turns, you're going to want to set them up, but keep it vague so that the audience is like, okay, I'm intrigued by this. That's how I would say balance the hook. And kind of don't front load them. Just give them enough exposition that you'll be able to, okay, I can see the world through this character's eyes, and I don't feel like I'm being dropped like a whole like an anvil of information has been dropped onto my forehead. That's kind of how I kind of balance things. Like I think I read a first chapter a while back where it starts off with this crazy event that happens, and I think it was actually the first stream I ever was on. Might have been the second, but it was a Tempest of Shadows where basically they're trying to do this research, and then it backfires, and that creates the whole world from there. Kind of similar to like Atlantis, the Lost Empire, what's revealed later in Wheel of Time of how it works, or at least like how the Dark One was released, very similarly. But I tried to do like enough things that are different to kind of just like, okay, I wanted to explore some of these ideas, and I wanted to try and like do something with kind of some of like Robert Jordan's neat ideas that he didn't necessarily capitalize on as much as I would have liked. That's pretty much my question.
I enjoy Space Junkie's comments.
Yeah, so yesterday I actually read like I actually kind of, what I did was I didn't want to front load the reader with a lot of exposition. So what I did was I had the read the main characters start in the past and then be pulled forward through time to the future. However, instead of like being instantaneous, they see the passage of time over the next few thousand years, visually, so I get to describe visually like what's happening, almost as if like they're watching a sped up movie. So that's kind of the way that I got around like the normal exposition dump notion or hurdle, I guess you could say.
I don't know. There's all ways you can get around the problem with heavy exposition.
Mm-hmm.
What I like when, especially 40K, where there's a lot of stuff happening, and there's a lot of things you usually need to understand before you get the whole universe. They usually introduce every bit of the universe to you that's relevant for other characters' jobs. So you got a guy that has the signal box. What does signal box do? Well, he's the guy that's constantly talking the phone with command. So it's probably just to contact command, etc., etc. And so you just get introduced to all these different elements through what the characters' jobs are or what they're doing, which is also a nice way to fill out the world. So if somebody is carrying a bunch of boxes that are heavily covered with all kind of sigils, and there's just some faint smell of oil or something on it, you can probably assume that it's important, and thereby, all right, so whatever this guy's carrying, he's important enough to at least carry it over here and there, and just go from there. Or you can dump most of the important information, such as what's the immediate surroundings, and then go from there. So usually I do enjoy when it's tied directly to what the characters are seeing or what's actually going on. Mm-hmm. I'm not much for scenic views where the character isn't the one observing it or it's not relevant to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exposition's definitely my weakness, because when I'm writing, that's usually where I get out of hand and onto a tangent about something. But I've been like reminding myself things like, well, if I'm writing an urban fantasy and a car passes by, I don't need to sit there and explain how the internal combustion engine works and keep the reader on like a need-to-know basis for like, this is a tiny bit about how this thing works that's relevant to the immediate scene or plot and to a level the character understands. So a farmer observing magic is not going to understand it on a level like a wizard does, but even a wizard is going to take a lot of the magic mechanics for granted and just be like, oh, fireball's heading for me, I better block that like right now, kind of thing, as an example.
Yeah, very much apportion information based on the character's background.
Their backgrounds, their values, and what they would take for granted. Because like even a wizard is not going to spend 5 minutes thinking about how he learned how to cast his first fireball when there's a fireball heading right at him,
Uh-huh. For sure.
It's just a matter of breaking it up. Like the thing I'm trying is some advice from Solstein, How to Grow a Novel. It's some best-selling author from the 50s or 60s, and my main takeaway is everything is dialogue, including exposition, and as soon as I hit the third or fourth sentence in a paragraph, it's time to move on, just because I ramble, I tangent. I usually need to cut back more than what someone might expect in an overwriter. So I'm just trying to remind myself to like break things up and keep things moving and keep the reader on like a need-to-know basis. Oh my God, you wrote 7,000 words today, and I'm like, you don't understand how much, so I'm going to have to cut that back in editing so that it flows better in reading. And that's a lot.
Everyone knows it's easier to edit than it is to write.
Yeah. Like my Final Fantasy VII fan fiction, it took about a month to write the first draft, and it took nearly 2.5 months to rewrite it into something I was happy with. And I still have a continuity edit to go, but it took twice as long to fix the problems I could find than it took to write it itself. And that's really frustrating for anyone that knows how long it actually is in terms of thousands of words. It was a lot of work, and I'm still not done yet, which is why I'm glad the sort of venture, sort of romance, sort of fantasy I'm writing today feels like it's going to end up being a lot shorter. So it's going to take nowhere near as long to edit it to a point where I'm happy with it, just because it's going to be on the shorter side of stories that I've written before.
I think it's kind of I'm one of those people that like just writing as much as I feel like and then pressing the publish button. But what I quickly realized is that when individual chapters take so long to write, people just burst through it and then they forget. So that's something I certainly had to learn the hard way, where it's like, all right, I worked about 3 weeks on this and tried to get all the errors, and now it's like 25,000 words, there you go. And like an hour later, oh, that was fine.
Hello there.
Hey, Nick.
General Kenobi.
Oh, I do Kenobi in a bad British Scottish accent way better than I can do Grievous, for sure.
General Kenobi, you are
Nice.
old one. Your training has been most useful. It has awarded me many trophies. I much prefer 2003 be Grievous as opposed to actual Grievous. Hey Nick, if you want to come on and ask questions, I'd be down to have you on. You just need to message me. You just need to tell me and I'll bring you in.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Good.
Okay. I also have what I consider for the story I'm writing today a relatively big twist. So the other thing I have in the back of my head is not just how the story ends, but how the manuscript might feel upon a reread. So there's a certain amount of framing with the ending in mind and how the reveal might affect how the text feels on a reread. I mean, if anyone rereads it would be nice, but like I'm trying to let that inform certain phrasings where if I'm not sure how to write it, I'm trying to write something that makes the character's intentions clear, but upon a reread kind of makes it go, oh shit. At least that's my intention. I won't know until I'm done whether or not it comes off well.
Well, there's always the challenge when it comes to big reveals that makes you double check a text and what it actually means. You can either have there's usually two camps where either the reader understands the text better, understands where you're coming from, and goes, this makes a lot more sense now. Or there's the people where they're like, you ruined it. This just makes it worse.
Like I'm kind of playing with the, oh no, not another person who's magically competent at skills that are actually require years of study and things. And I'm kind of hoping that like, no, there's a specific reason for that. And knowing that it's like, it's not a trope. It's literally the person forgot how competent they were. And they're not noticing that they didn't train for it because they forgot. Kind of thing. Like there's just so many, like, whatever I choose to do as a living, I'm going to be the best in the world at it. Kind of main characters and stories that I'm trying to play with that to make someone not hyper competent at their chosen job, or just literally play with the trope that they're actually secretly competent and they don't know it, but it all ties into the reveal.
Mm-hmm.
I like the reveals that make you double think who you can actually trust, which is what I'm currently working on, where what the characters that the main characters are pretty much tied to, even one of them is soulbound to them, it's pretty much the one they rely on to get them from here to there, who has ulterior motives. The question is that's a big question, is how people react to it. And once it's done, you can't really change it. Yep. You can change it in the writing, but you can't change people's reaction to it.
I also don't know until I get better reader feedback about how obvious is the twist going to be and how many people and what types of readers are going to figure out the reveal before it happens. But I'm also hoping to fix the story up enough that the people who see it coming will still be interested enough to be like, oh, it's that kind of story, but still be interested enough to see how I pull it off, you know?
Well, yeah, in general, at least from my experience, most people that see a twist coming, it's not necessarily bad, and they'll even read onwards if there's more to it. But if, say, you make a twist and it doesn't make any sense, they'll be more than likely to just go, why am I reading this?
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid that last reaction.
Mhm.
Oh, Better brings up a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there has to be something more or to the real than the main character. Or, yeah.
Oh no, that's not the reveal. Like there are people in this audience that are potentially either better or early readers or something, so I can just lay it down now. The reveal is not that the character has amnesia and forgot that they're actually highly trained in a hard magic system in this world. It's literally a Darth Revan Knights of the Old Republic type reveal. Ooh, they were the main antagonists all along kind of thing.
Oh, they literally just got somebody, a third party, removed their knowledge of how powerful they were?
Yes, and part of writing the first draft is figuring out how that even works in the magic system to make it make sense. I'm still only a couple chapters in the beginning where it's like, oh my god, I got away from the bad guys, and I'm still, like, not done the first arc yet, so I have a lot of work to do, but I mean, one of the early hints is that this is a hard magic system. The main character's already competent in stuff they don't remember training in is one of the first hints that, like, things aren't what they seem. And have specific side characters point out that, like, there's no such thing as a natural knack in this kind of magic. But also kind of, like, put it aside and move on with the characterization and the plot.
I noticed Courier gave us a basket full of things to pull apart.
Here?
There it is. Yep. If you guys don't know what he's referring to, it's Sword Art Online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen Sword Art Online, so I've
All right.
no further reference.
Well, the TLDR for it is that a man, we'll just call him the man because I can't remember the author's name, was writing for a contest, and he made a world where there's a digital game, like full-on VR. You can feel stuff, you can taste stuff in your mind, that is, and you can even have sex in it for some reason. And they decide that, well, this is great. And then they have 10,000 people from Japan just go into this world and have fun. On the first day of launch, however, 10,000 people are trapped inside the game at once, and then they can't log out. And so the creator of the game goes, yeah, you can leave when you've beaten the game. And if you die even once, you die in real life too, because the headset fries your brain. Oh, hi, Alex.
Hi.
That's a good point from Crimson Scorpio. I like it. I think I do think that though that Game of Thrones is actually a good example of a story where you don't exactly know what's happening, but it is inevitable in hindsight. And even like
I didn't need hindsight whilst I was watching. At least at one point, like I think which wedding is it where everyone fucking dies?
The Red Wedding.
A couple of them.
The Red Wedding. That's the one. I was just sitting there thinking, even before he made the screwed them over, I was like, yeah, he done a goof and he's gonna get punished for it. That's the kind of writing I absolutely adore.
I mean, my hope is, twist or not, any stories I write are captivating and keep readers going, and potentially even give rereads for reasons, because rereading it means that the narrative continues. And my current story's big twist means that there could be a value to rereading it if I write something interesting enough to even finish in the first place.
Oh, sweet. We have somebody else coming in.
Oh, fantastic.
Cool.
We find his intro. It's buried in a lot of stuff. I have like 8 brand organizers.
Take your time.
Yeah.
You're in no rush.
Yeah.
Look! The moonlight shows us for what we really are. We are not among the living, and so we cannot die. But neither are we dead.
Hello there.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Nick.
How's
So,
everyone doing on this Thursday afternoon?
Going pretty good. I have to say. So Abigail, I know. Nick. Abigail, then Nick Brown. Please feel free to ask any question you want. I know that Abigail wanted to ask a question of me earlier, and I just like to be able to make sure that I get to it.
Yeah, Abigail, if you would like to go first.
You'll have to remind me what it was because I don't remember what I said I'd ask you if I haven't already.
I think it was about the publishing process.
Oh, yeah. Because wherever I'm at, when I finish my current story, I kind of want to go through the normal editing process and better read it and polish it and then throw it into an ebook to see how it does. I don't expect it to have like a return investment on the time I'm going to sink into it, but I'm looking forward to the twist well enough that I'm kind of hoping to throw it into an ebook and publish it as maybe my first ebook, maybe under a pseudonym I might never use again, I'm not sure. But at some point get to like, okay, now that you finished your first ebook, and I know the market's very saturated, Dunn was saying earlier, but I have questions about how to go from the ebook file to like listing on Amazon at some point.
I actually have a video on my channel called Working the Self-Publishing System that you can watch, where I basically just go through it.
Okay.
But I can also show you like really quickly how it works. It's basically just a fill in. It's just fill in the blanks, pretty much. So and this will kind of double as my first novella, The First Dragon Strife, is actually available on Amazon Kindle, available for $8. Shameless plug.
Chill.
Yeah, and there's a preview of about 40 minutes on my channel to allow you to see whether you like it or not.
That's the roundabout one, right? Or not the roundabout, I forget what you titled it, but it's on my list to watch. I've been saving it for a special occasion. It's now I'm looking it up because
it's I think it's The First Dragon Strike Battle. It's about 40 minutes long. It's about 40 minutes long.
The dramatic reading.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that one I'm like super excited to watch it at some point. I've just been like holding it off for a special occasion for a rainy day or something.
Yeah. I feel like I did the best one with that one because I had like 4 readers for that one where kind of we rotated through the character POVs and each person read a different POV.
Yeah, that's what caught my attention. I'm like, there's so many people there. What's going on? And I started watching like the first 5 minutes, and I'm immediately like, oh, I'm saving this for a special day when I get when I go out to eat or something like that. Get some nice food, set it all up, all nice and fancy like.
All right.
That's there's my secret process for everyone. That's how I like to watch some streams. Buy fancy food, quote unquote. It's probably like McDonald's or something. Just sit down.
Oh, sure.
That explains why Mike isn't there.
Hey, how's it going? Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, for sure, Mark and 3. Come on in. We'd love to have you. Ooh, that's a good one. Really good examples of writing for people who are just getting into it. I would say Redwall, Wheel of Time, Stormlight Archive and Mistborn, and I think Steelheart, as well as it. And if you're like looking to experiment with some dark fantasy, go First Law. Those would be really good examples of writing for people that are just kind of getting into it. If you're kind of looking for like examples of like how to do specific things.
So is it like books to read, essentially?
I think so. Med, if you could clarify, that would be great.
Yeah, because yeah, those are all good. I have the only one I still need to read Real Time. I've been missing out on that.
Oh, you're okay.
Yeah,
I have a
but
classmate that can't shut up about Wheel of Time, so eventually I'm gonna have to go through it to understand what all the hype's about.
Someone at my job was just hired this week, and when he came in for the interview, he had very nerdy pins on. So at some point, I'm going to subtly probe whether or not he has also read Wheel of Time.
So, welcome to.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Wow.
Very original.
Yeah, I was
Hey,
not
everyone.
expecting the John Travolta.
Hi.
Yep, hello, Mark.
Yeah, that subvert my expectations. So
Indeed.
to say.
Welcome, Mark in 3D.
Yeah, hi.
Mainly books and literature. Okay, cool.
I apologize for confusing that this will be tomorrow or not. Some reason I looked at the time zone and it gave me like 9 a.m. tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's totally fine. I apologize. Should have clarified and just said Thursday.
No problem.
Yeah. Partially because I did it like late at night because I did it really late at night, which I think was part of the issue that threw a lot of people off. But yeah. So to answer Abigail's question, I'll just kind of give like a short, like basically just a short thing. Basically, all it is kind of just filling out the details.
Okay.
So, for instance, you just kind of fill out like book title, subtitle if that you want one, series information, edition number, author, primary edit, author / contributor. If there are other contributors, you can put them here. You put the description here. You can choose whether you own the publishing rights. It allows you to let you know is under copyright, and you hold the necessary right for the contents being published. Like, for instance, an example, like if you publish your own original work, you automatically like gain copyright by the virtue of just like putting that out there on Amazon. But if it's something like Lovecraft, Peter Pan, etc., or other public domain, you would need to mark it as this is a public domain work.
Yeah, to follow the Lovecraft example, there are some elder ones that were created by someone else in the 50s or 60s who kind of built on Lovecraft. And because the timing of copyright law currently, his portions of the mythos are under copyright, whereas Lovecraft's original 1920s lore is in the public domain. And if people make that mistake, it could involve lawyers. And yes, I've looked into it because I still sell a Cthulhu doll on Etsy. And I was looking into making other crocheted old ones. But if I chose the wrong one, they're not in the public domain and I'm trying to sell them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like that.
Interesting. I did not know that.
I always thought these kind of like copyright laws are so weird because like this changes in different countries as well. Because as far as I know, like Japan has its own copyright law regarding this, I think.
And then you can kind of pick the seven like search words that kind of describe your book. It tells you pretty much like keywords, short phrases, describe your book. The best ones are the ones that don't repeat in this title, category, description. They're already as these are already used to help readers find your book. So you set them as categories, like basically like categories on genre categorizations, fiction, you go action adventure, alternative history, Amish and Mennonite, fantasy, gay, ghost, gothic, etc.
Oh, good. Those are squares, so I can choose multiple categories because this thing's going to be mixed genre, and I don't want people to like mistake that. You know?
You can't select more than 2 is going to be the thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Let me cancel and go to my bookshelf. So, and that's mainly to. Why did it do that to me? That's so annoying. But to kind of answer with kind of the file thing, let me pull up one of my official books that I've already published to kind of just take a look at the second bit of editing the content. And you can always unpublish it at any time. That's also a possibility.
Yeah.
If you get a KDP, if you're doing a paperback, you can get assigned a free KDP. And also publication date. You can fix the trim size, upload the manuscript. It's they like either PDF, docs, HTML, or RTF. And then you can launch your cover creator. With a paperback, you need to add an author bio, an author picture, and the description. And let me show you. And I just won't save anything on this. So it's the main thing. So
Space Young does bring up a good point about Etsy. The fact that people sell copyrighted works all the time.
They do, but if the lawyers can find you, they shut them down. Even if the lawyers shut down 1 and 10 more spring up somewhere else. And I'm not doing that on Etsy where like they shut me down and I open up 10 more storefronts. So I wanted to keep my merchandise to stuff in the public domain or original. Just so I wouldn't have to go through that even once.
So this is kind of and here's kind of the place where you can kind of pick out, okay, what kind of cover design you want to go with. You can even like do stuff like this. So
cool.
So, and then you can go to the pricing. Pricing section where you can kind of continue without saving. You will have to, with a cover thing, you do have to launch a preview, but that takes that takes like 15 minutes to load usually. And what will happen is they'll give it to you and they'll tell you if it doesn't quite work with the formatting. So they'll give you 3 options. One is you can have it cut and pasted into a new document that fits it. It's the font size, or you can have it adjusted to meet the trim size you have. And then you kind of go with picking the price of it. With a paperback, the bare minimum is the cost of printing. In this case, the cost of printing is $3.58, and the max is $250. With a Kindle book, it's a little bit different, where you pick either your 30%, 35%, or 70%. If you do 70%, you have to allow lending of your book. If it's just 35%, you don't have to do that.
With a 30-70%, what is that a percentage of?
The price is the royalty. Let me show you. Let me get it real quick. Let me pull it up real quick. So is
wait,
this
you could theoretically.
Go for it.
I was gonna say, so you could theoretically, since the lowest publishing rate cost is like $3, right?
Depends on the book. The larger the book is, the higher the publishing cost. The higher the printing cost.
All right. So say that you could theoretically you could publish a book on Loch Ness Monster that costs $3.50.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, even crickets have better audience.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is kind of the book. So you could either pick the 35% royalty plan or the 70% royalty plan. With the 70% royalty plan, you have to allow lending, which means like a person can give somebody else your book for a little bit. That's the thing. And that's pretty much all that you need to know about like Kindle Direct Publishing.
Okay.
And for a more detailed thing, you can I can send you the link to my self-publishing video where I go through more of it. Oh.
Yeah, don't worry about reiterating.
I was about to bring that up. Let's go.
Terrible fanfics. I know I'm thinking about Mother Teresa / My Immortal in the pipeline.
Oh, no. We have much worse stuff to go through, my friend.
Oh, dear.
Courier has made it his goal to find the bottom of the barrel in terms of fanfiction.
Wow. Okay. As long as I get to read actually good fanfiction on occasion, I'm okay with it.
Just a nugget of gold here and there, and all the rest is just sewage.
Yeah.
It sounds like we'll be begging for framing monsters after the end of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love kind of like, what is the kind of the worst? So it's like, I know that I'm going to be reading Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon for a while. I actually even have the intro picked out for it.
Ooh. We went into it with no experience in television whatsoever, and made a tremendous number of mistakes for the first year. I mean, still make mistakes every year, but I think, but you know, hopefully learning as we go and improving things. But we just didn't have any production experience, so we came in kind of knowing how we wanted to write it, but not knowing anything about the casting process, the editing process, working with visual effects, working with a production designer, all that stuff that you need to know, and it's been a steep learning curve.
They would get behind a project and they would give it a solid commitment.
We'd never produced anything for television before. We'd never produced anything for film or internet or anything. We'd written before, but we never produced. So when we went to George, probably it was probably like that bluff where you mistakenly think you have a straight and you actually don't. But we were so confident that I think we convinced George that, well, these guys seem like they really know what they're doing.
I said, I want it done. I want a faithful adaptation of the books. And they said, that's what we want to do.
Yikes.
Ooh, that didn't age well.
No, that didn't age well. And also just like admissions on 2 separate times that we had no idea how production works. Great. And we still don't know how production works.
I love how when they were talking about making mistakes every year, it goes up to like the Blackfish and Catelyn Stark, and it's like, yep, those were mistakes. You've messed up those characters.
Yeah, kind of.
This only proves to me that like it's so easy to fool George R.R. Martin. Like anyone could just walk to him and tell him that like I want to make an adaptation.
I think they just got lazy and went nuts with power.
But like, okay, I haven't seen too much of Game of Thrones, but like, wasn't it supposedly at the beginning kind of faithful or like good in the beginning?
It's fairly faithful, yeah. It's only in like season. There were slight warning signs because they didn't include characters that would factor into later books.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like seasons 1 through 4 they're pretty good. End of season 4, there's kind of iffy terrain here and there, but it was still
Well,
manageable.
I think season 4's ending completely screws the show going forward.
Yeah, I was like season 4's ending with the not including the Taisha reveal for Tyrion. That was a big misstep right there, and I think not having because season 5 that was your big clue because George R. R. Martin used to write at least one episode per season, and he stopped being involved in the show with come season 5. So that should have been a big warning sign of something was amiss.
Yeah.
So this gives me a good excuse for Don. You mentioned something about supply lines earlier in regards to how the undead fights unlike every other army. I thought that is a most relevant topic now on the topic of Game of Thrones. How would you have done the undead were you in the writing seat for Game of Thrones?
I would not have them attack Winterfell. I would have them move right past Winterfell and attack the south.
Fair enough. That seems to be a very popular goal.
Because it's intelligent.
Winterfell was designed to survive the winter and a siege.
Yeah.
Like winter's last years, and they have tall walls and thick walls and low squat buildings, so they're like ideally designed to fight against the siege of undead that don't use siege engines. So now that you say it, I can see why it would make sense for the army of undead to just walk past Winterfell and go to the south, where they're not built to withstand extended sieges.
As well as another issue. Well, I would have a holding force stick right in the middle, kind of by Winterfell, as just kind of how Alexander the Great kept Horus in place during the Battle of the Hydaspes, where I would just stick them right next to an army of undead right next to Winterfell that's about equivalent to the size of the army in Winterfell, but while I move the rest of my force down south through the neck, because undead warriors don't care about mud or muck, and they can't suffocate or cold or anything. And then all they can do is just break into King's Landing and kill everybody in there.
Utilize the White Walkers too. They weren't even in the Battle of Winterfell. Your strongest units, they weren't there. What was the whole point of giving all like Brienne, Jorah, like Valyrian swords if they weren't going to use them against the White Walkers? There was no fight, so it was just
Also, please no excessive plot armor and really stupid like dogpiling, and then cut to the next scene. They're fine.
Yeah, that Mauler cut away and they're fine. Oh, I'm sure she's fine. They cut away from that and he's fine.
Actually, that should be writing 101. Do not do this. Do not make it look like your character's about to die. Cut away and then they're just fine. Under no circumstances.
Also, don't film in the middle of winter in Northern Ireland so that your porta potties and utilities freeze so that nobody's able to go to the bathroom properly.
You would think that'd be common sense, but clearly common sense is not that common. At least
The funniest thing is
admitted that they have no idea how to run a production.
Yeah, it's kind of just like, it's just so funny because it's not like a set report. We have visual documented stuff of a dude on set saying, like on set in the moment saying, well, the porta potties and the utilities froze because it's in the middle of winter.
And then the Dumb and Dumber just sort of laugh it off, like, "Oh, it's fine."
They chickened out of Comic-Con because they knew they would get booed, and somehow they went to Austin Film Fest, which was even more damaging to them. Go for it. Sorry.
I was going to go with the obvious advice of like read lots and finish what you start for new writers. I'm still an amateur writer myself, but it sounds like solid advice. But I just remembered after all this chatter about the Game of Thrones adaptation to also read things that you feel or are bad or other people say, this story is terrible. And after you read it, you can have a better understanding maybe, of why it's bad, why you didn't finish it, why it was a struggle to finish, so you can like improve your critical eye and maybe not do that in your own stories.
I second this.
Concur. I would definitely concur. You definitely have one of the problems that I know. One thing that I wanted to do was like I hate the moment in TLJ where Rose says, "That's how we're gonna win," not by destroying what we hate, saving what we love.
That was the most romantic line.
And then, of course, the rebel base blows up in the background. Just
yeah, it's the metaphor.
I watched that initially. I was like, that's fine, and then I like thought about it and like,
how?
Well, because I was a sheep.
All right, fair enough.
No, Don, you were drunk.
I'm a Mormon. I can't drink.
Oh,
yeah. No, I was looking at that straight, and I was in pure terror.
I was partially because I was listening to the likes of Just Right and School of Movies back in the day before I realized they're full of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I found it and I realized that I don't like that line. A, because it's like dumb and poorly considered, like just as a line, and also it just doesn't fit with any of the themes of the movie. Like it's just kind of an out there nowhere, like weird preachy moment that doesn't fit. And so what I did was I took that idea and actually made it the entire theme of Queen of the Ashes, one of the books that I'm writing, where this character is focused on avenging people who are dead when she should be worried about protecting people who are alive, but she kind of conflates the two in her head, and that's the story of her life.
Like, I like the line that Rose says, but I don't like it in context, I guess is what I'd say.
Yeah. It could be interesting, like I think like it's fine. It could be fine in something else. Like I think in a civil rights movie that line would actually be very poignant.
Yeah, it could have been like so many other places where that line would have been said, but
or maybe
just not there.
Not follow the line up with blowing up an entire flotilla army, you know? Maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah,
just don't know what Ryan had
that
in
line.
his head.
Yeah, that line, like Don said, it's fit for like a civil rights movie, but you're in war. That's not.
That's the thing I was gonna bring up. Don't say stuff like this in a war movie. Actually, Saving Private Ryan is a good point here. They tried to with the German soldier. You had that one character where he was like, can't we just leave him? Can we just let him live? And the other guys are like, this is going to bite us in the ass. We can't be good people in a war. This is going to kill us. And it's like, nah, it's fine. Then later on, it ends up killing more people. Then it was like they end up killing more of his friends than they would, like the soul he would have lost had he just killed him. Would have been better off if they just, put him down there.
Yeah, the German soldier killed like two of the main guys, the team, and then walks by the guy who spares life, and he's just sobbing and crying, and the German soldier spares him, which bites him in the butt when the sobbing guy after the battle comes up and just shoots him, and then the rest of the people are taken prisoner.
Exactly.
Hi, Neph. Good to see you. Yeah. I think, a good example is just the movie. The sentiment could be a poignant thing, but the context hurts it a lot and kind of diminishes its meaning.
I know enough about World War I that I'm wondering if Private Ryan might actually be a response to I've heard of, but not specific examples, of battles or orders that were defied merely because in the moment, people would be fighting for the guys on either side of them, whatever the orders were. So they were like literally fighting for what they loved instead of attacking what they hated, and it caused things to kind of go into chaos in a few bits in World War I. But again, I'm not going to condemn real soldiers for like trying to save the lives of the people they've been working with for months or years, because that's just war sucks. But Rose's sentiment could work in a war movie, but I guess if I were to do it not in one where it's a soldier saying it or being said to a soldier, but more like someone being caught up in living near where war's taking place.
Well, the key thing to remember is that if you want your sentiment to be, it's not right to kill people, you don't kill violence with violence, you kill violence with love. Don't say that when the Nazis are about to blow open your doors and kill everyone.
Yeah, no, putting a daisy in the barrel of a gun at someone that doesn't even see you as a human person, that doesn't work. Pacifism is nice, but not when your enemy doesn't see you as having a right to live.
Exactly. That's why I love stuff like Gundam, where both sides know that they're human, but they try to dehumanize each other as much as possible, because afterwards they're always looking like they just went through hell, just taking the life of 2 or 3 people. That's the kind of setting where you can get away with doing peace messages, and like, don't kill people, you gotta love them when they actually see you as a human being. As soon as you dehumanize them, like one side is dehumanized to the point of executing people they just took prisoner, that's the point where you're going, yeah, maybe we need to kill them.
Those aren't executions. They're only executions when we acknowledge them as people. Yeah, just gross. No. I think that's why I don't like writing war movies, because I don't like getting in the mind of someone who's willing to kill other people, so I don't write characters like that. At best, I'll do like morally gray, like where you look at the antagonist and go, oh shit, I think they're onto something.
Mm-hmm. See, I like writing...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I, on contrary, love those kinds of characters. I like to get into the headspace of somebody that can dehumanize somebody to the point of not looking at them as person, because that also gives you a good insight of what you need to avoid as a person. That's also why I have a mixed relationship with Greek tragedies or some such, where ultimately, whilst the characters are doing something wrong, they are giving you a template of what not to do in their situation.
And the older I get, the older I want to write villains that aren't 100% wrong and heroes that aren't 100% right, and have antagonists that are at least on some degree, oh shit, they have a good reason for that. But I mean, I still need an antagonist for my protagonist, because they define each other and it's going to be bad and come to a head or something.
Yeah,
I dropped the rest of my thread, but whoever was talking next, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna add. I think it also depends on the sort of the story and the tone you're going for when you want to do a morally gray villain or just a full out 100% villain, because both of them both the type of characters are very fun to write. It just sort of depends on, are you going for sort of a like an adventure feel like the original Star Wars, or are you going for something more darker, like maybe like Game of Thrones or something?
Yeah, like I'm not sure how grimdark or just a little dark I might push my current mixed genre story, but I mean, if the reveal is, oh no, the main character just was made to forget that she's the main antagonist for reasons, I kind of want an antagonist that is in context bad, but for certain reasons, like they have a point. But that also means I should have heroes that are like, we have to stop the bad guys, but like maybe any means necessary, so that both sides have things wrong and both sides have things right, and the reader has to figure out who they want to empathize with more. While at the same time, I'm just writing a story of a main character who thinks they are who they think they are, and is just trying to get away from the whole issue of dealing with the antagonist and live their own life and be like the hero or something, and be a character that the reader wants to like, to kind of make the reveal of, oh no, they're actually the main bad guy, kind of all a twisted mess that I hope in another 20 or 30,000 words actually comes off as a reasonable story.
Well, as a biased person myself, I will always vouch for the grimdark. We always need more of that these days, especially these days. But it entirely depends on what feel you're going for.
It's just hard when Knights of the Old Republic is the main example I'm going with for the type of reveal, because in that specific game, you can choose to be a Sith or a Jedi, quote-unquote, good as far as the mechanics are concerned, or bad as far as the mechanics in the video game are concerned. But I want to play with that line. We'll still have a hero with antagonists. And when you're inside the hero's head, you can see why they are right to be the hero and generally a good, likable person. And then try to figure out who the main antagonist even really is, so that if I ever get into their headspace or the headspace of their quote-unquote underlings, that things make sense. I'm barely a third through the whole story, so there's questions that I still need to answer, which is why I kind of trail off a few times, because I know what kind of ending I want. I just have to get there and then solve the problems that crop up in editing. So I have a bit of work to do before I can like more thoroughly describe the obstacles I've overcome, because I haven't overcome them yet.
Is this the MMO?
No, this is the single player RPG that was made by the people that made Mass Effect.
Ah, yeah, KOTOR.
Bethesda Studios?
Yeah.
I forget offhand. I feel like this is a name I should remember because I've played most of their single player games.
Skyrim.
BioWare.
And yeah, Knights of the Old Republic is a single player RPG where the sequel is made by Obsidian and is buggy as hell, but I played it anyway because I wanted to go back into Choose Your Own Adventure Star Wars.
Yeah, that's my favorite game actually.
Oh, Courier brings up a good point just once more.
Oh,
I
the only Grim I'm aware of is the Grim story, Grim TV show, where a dude is able to see weird monsters of various types, where they're mostly just animal-human hybrids, though there are witches there.
Oh yeah, the Grim. I vaguely remember that. I think I was a couple episodes into it and lost interest.
Well, what he's referencing...
It's very police procedural, but I know he's referring to Ruby.
Oh, I was just going to say, the point with his post is that in Ruby, the American TV show, not anime, go away. In Ruby, one of the main antagonists, till we introduce all the proper human antagonists, are a bunch of evil creatures that are born out of people's evil ideas, evil thoughts, and evil, just generally sadness. And the problem with that is that they aren't very threatening. Most characters can take them out basically blindsided, deaf, just with one gunshot. And they are supposed to be the main villains.
That sounds distinctly frustrating.
Oh, it absolutely is, because the idea is that they basically form from any negative emotions and take forms of creatures that you know. So wolves would just be very big black wolves because black is spooky, but it can also take forms of cultural creatures, like that one Irish skinless creature that's fused to a horse. Knucklehead, that's it. Like just these weird creatures, and they just never do anything with them because ultimately they're just jobbers for the main characters to kill. Which is, in general, not a good thing, at least not in terms of writing if you want people to be afraid of these things.
That's terrible.
I guess that leads into a question I just thought of. What are your guys like, and maybe like in any fiction, they're not like the main bad guys, but they're sort of the foot soldiers that sort of give you the creeps or sort of intimidate, they're intimidating or scary to you guys?
I think that one idea is actually the foot soldiers in First Law. The eaters, because they're super powered because they are cannibals as well as magic users, and it's really, really disturbing. I think there's also another thing where it's like they make a deal with the Shanka or flatheads, where they're almost orcs / trolls, and they are just like a plague, which I think is hilarious, or at least which I think is great. I think Trollocs and Murdral are also a good example. Same with Dragcar. I like the Parshendi from
Stormlight.
From Stormlight, yeah. Pretty much it.
Oh, what are they called? There's a specific race. The Vorak from Bionicles, one that comes to mind. The literature, that is. Because surprisingly, they had a lot of short stories written about their world, where you got these creepy lizard-like beings that got the whole or aliens thing going on, where they have a tongue that's basically has its own life, and they just show up, kill shit, and then run away. And they can stalk their prey for months just to spook them before they actually do anything bad. And they ultimately serve pretty much they serve their own purposes. That's also in the service of a greater evil. Stuff like that really creeps me out. It's just somebody that does evil stuff. They don't tell you why. They don't care to tell you why. They just do it. And they'll take as long as they need to do so. But just villains that take a lot of pleasure out of what they're doing. Such as, I keep referencing Warhammer, but it's such a good reference point. A lot of villains in Warhammer 40k, a lot of them are sadistic bastards that take so much glee in what they're doing and how much suffering they're putting you through. But they take time to explain to you why they're doing it, why you're in for what you're about to be in for, and they'll make sure that you stay alive for as long as possible whilst maximizing your pain. And then they'll weigh you like a hat that can still moan in pain just to spite you. And those are just the secondary villains. So funnily enough, the main villains tend to be much less noteworthy. Which I guess kind of like Star Wars, where you have Darth Vader and then you have Sidious.
You done now?
I guess for my answer would probably be for intimidation, the Uruk-hai from the Lord of the Rings. Those are always a great intimidating breed of orcs that loved as a childhood.
Yeah.
Slayed so many. But then more when I grow into adult, the ones that I always hesitate, like, could I kill one? Is the xenomorphs specifically from Aliens, because the first one there's only one, but in Aliens there's a lot. And the reason I hesitate, I'm like, their blood is made of acid. That's a big issue if you're gonna try and even if you shoot them, their blood sprays everywhere. It can get real messy real fast.
Mm.
Now, when I say I am not always talking because I'm scrambling for notes for rank and file members of the quote-unquote evil organization that I haven't fully developed yet, I'm not doing it because of listening to other people's ideas. I'm looking at what I already put in the text and be like, hey, I know how to change that to apply to rank and file, so that I think if there is a certain amount of magic that gives certain members fast healing, and I give it to an entire footman force, that could be pretty devastating in a battle. Even if I don't have any wards on screen. I'm just spitballing because I realize I have a big bad guy, 4 people working under that person, and then I have nothing in my notes beneath that, including just what does the rank and file of the organization look like. So I'm just kind of frantically writing notes about that as I come up with ideas.
I mean, if you want the quick and easy one, it's always just have them actually be a threat. Like the opening of Star Wars Episode 4 is a good reference point, where you immediately see the joke is that stormtroopers can't aim with anything, right?
Yeah.
But then in the opening of Star Wars Episode 4, they murder an entire hallway full of trained rebels. Like, no issue.
Yeah, it's
Um,
significant cognitive dissonance there, especially considering.
Yeah, thank
like,
you,
how it's been writing
Mandalorian, for
movies.
making it lore.
Oh, Mandalorian. That's a discussion for a whole nother day.
Oh, that's an entire live stream on its own.
Yes.
I choose to kind of look at the Mandalorian as basically like that moment in the Mandalorian is basically they are so bereft of actually good troops that they just have a bunch of crap ones.
I had the same idea as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the hope, because what we see in Episode 4 and then the rest of the the movies, ooh, that's not a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in Episode 4, the reason they missed a lot is because they were letting them go, letting Luke, Han, Leia.
At least Episode 4 has a good excuse.
And then Episode 5 was pretty fine. There's I guess you could say a couple moments of investment. I thought that was pretty fine. It's more so when you get to Episode 6.
Yeah.
Wasn't Episode 5 the prison one?
No, Episode 5, the Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, the movie one. I thought we were still talking about Mandalorian.
Just have your... go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was just going to say, I generally don't use a lot of foot soldiers in my books that aren't... I usually will try to... unless like I need a big army where I need like a bunch of faceless people, generally the thing that I make sure to do is have my kind of the leaders of the individual troops be terrifying, because otherwise it's just going to be like not terribly interesting for the reader to engage with. Like one example is that I kind of did some shifts on was the undead warriors in Queen of Spring, which actually just released a couple months ago, where the main thing is the wraiths that are their leaders are basically stuck in the moment where they died, and they're still bitter over the same things they were bitter in life even hundreds of years later.
Kara took the kids.
Yeah, my current setup is that there's a city recovering from a war that just ended where the main antagonist is quote unquote reported dead and her underlings went to ground, and I start in media res of one of their random prisoners just escapes and is the person it turns out to be the actual big bad, because I'm not trying to tell Knights of the Republic with the serial number filed off at all. I just like that idea of, oh no, it turns out the main character used to be the main antagonist, and I'm trying to set something up where it's just also a character drama leading to that reveal. Sorry, there's so much that's unwritten at this point that honestly I was thinking about not spoiling that, but then I can't really talk about the story in its full context without that, you know?
Well, it's been 17 years, so.
No, I don't mean spoiling Knights of the Republic. I mean spoiling the reveal in my story. Like, I can't talk about the setup if I don't reveal it, even though it's like a mixed genre fantasy, maybe adventure, with like 3 arcs of romance until it leads up to the big reveal, so that I have tension of the actual on-screen antagonist dealing, like going after the main character, while also they're just trying to survive and then lead up to like the big reveal of, oh no, you, the main character, were the bad guy the entire time. And I'm trying to make that work. I just, like I said, I'm 7,000 words in. I don't know what the story is going to actually look like, because sometimes I come up with a theme or an ending or a reveal, and I either take too long to get to that point, or I finish the story and my original idea wasn't the story that I told. But when I got this idea for the reveal and a setup, I'm like, I want to tell that story and just get to the end and see how that works out and edit it into something readable.
I do feel you there though with when you're talking about trying not to reveal major plot points of your story when talking about it. I always try and like tell friends and family like, "Oh, this is what I'm doing," but it's hard to try and explain it when you're keeping things hidden. Like, "Oh, I don't want to spoil it because if you want to read it, you probably don't want to know that plot point."
The thing that someone said to me was that if the spoiler ruins the story and makes it less interesting to read, it's not a good story.
Oh.
Revealing the spoiler changes your first read through, but if you don't want to finish it, then it's not a good story outside of the context of the spoiler.
That's
interesting. I didn't think about that. I might take that into consideration.
I mean, but
no, it's fine. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I grew up in the age of the internet where everybody is so spoiler happy. So I just kind of learned to accept it, I guess. And eventually, at some point, I realized that most of the spoilers I hear actually makes me more interested in the show than less, based on the actual quality of the twist. So I won't be there like, but be more like, that's actually a pretty good twist. Whilst if it's a twist that just shocking for the sake of shocking, it's like, well, glad I didn't spend like 10 years of my life waiting for this.
Yeah, like one of the... No, go ahead, Dunn. Sorry.
Which is why I'm interested to kind of have a few streams in future where I bring somebody who's read, ask me questions about how I came up with this, and I can ask them questions about what they liked and stuff like that. That's what I'm particularly interested in the future. I just need to get some people to read the book.
Read my book, please. I want to talk about it.
Yes.
I have to get through Lost Legion first.
No, you're totally fine. You're swamped with school. I feel you. But I guess I think like one of the main ones that I would really like to talk about is Prince of Winter, because I want to kind of get a feeling for, okay, I designed this character to be not a very good person. He's a very strict utilitarian, where he's like, alrighty, I will inflict the most amount of damage on the other person with the least amount of damage to my own side, is his philosophy. Especially when it comes to war. And that kind of leads him to do underhanded things for the sake of preserving the life of his troops. And I would really like to see, like, does it make this person unforgivable / unlikable? And I'm really interested because I put the reveal like 3/4 in of some of the bad stuff he's done and like put into full context, where I'm kind of hinting throughout what's been happening by kind of making two parallel narratives, kind of almost like how Brandon Sanderson does Stormlight Archive, where he'll kind of interchange flashback chapter with current day chapter, but it's from the perspective of one person, whereas I kind of like have parallel narratives from multiple characters' perspectives, where it's kind of like almost like I'm writing two books at once and they kind of run parallel to each other, with the climax of one being very different to the climax of the other. So that's what I would be kind of most interested to kind of hear about in terms of feedback would be Prince of Winter, because especially kind of comparing that to the feedback from Lost Legion, where that's kind of the most like critically, for lack of a better word, critically successful book that I have, where it's got like a 4.1 out of 5, where I'm just like, thank you.
I guess I'm gonna have to take off a little right here, but I do want to, before I go, thank you for inviting me and everything too as well. I always appreciate that. But before I go, leave with a question for all of you to talk about, or mostly you, Dunn. What gave you the idea for the Prince of Winter sort of story and character?
Okay, so initially I was writing it when I was 16. I was basically writing it as he's this bitter teenager who's kind of become disillusioned with life because he originally it was he kills his sister gets killed in a hunting accident, and he blames the guy that kind of led her off, that led her to war, into accidentally her into it. However, I changed it to it was actually and he tries to kill the prince and ends up killing the king by accident. And later on, like, he gets crippled in a war by having a horse fall on him. That was kind of the original draft, but then I decided, no, that doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. So I shifted it to, no, it was deliberate murder that happened by the king, and that leads Richard on to say, I hate you, and I'm going to figure out a way to kill you in a way that doesn't put any of the blood on my hands, or at least like doesn't appear like it is on my hands. And so that's kind of the shift that I decided to do from how it was originally conceived.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
And a lot of it was kind of figuring out, like, okay, and kind of realizing I kind of wrote a Tywin Lannister-esque character. I just need to kind of lean more into the utilitarian brutality of Tywin Lannister as a character, but kind of shifted around where he's a crippled young man who feels like he got broken before his time. And he's having to deal with, like, people saying he's not weak, not strong enough, and so he has to do very drastic things in order to say, no, I am still in control. There's nothing that you can do to touch me. And if you try, I will kill you.
Wow. I like the idea of him trying to do this without, like, getting blood directly on his hands. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely got to take a look at that. Prince of Winter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, I guess I'm going to have to take off, but thank you for answering the question before I leave. Thank you for having me on. Pleasure meeting all of you as well for the short amount of time I was on here.
Bye.
Yeah. Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Bye, Nick.
Yep. Thank you. See you. Stay safe, everyone. Have fun.
You too, Nick. And then there was 4.
Alrighty.
Actually, if no one else has a question, I would have one.
I was just gonna make a comparison with Dun's character idea, but go ahead.
All right. Basically, Abigail was like saying that, like, you already have like an idea of like what you would like to have in your story, like a reveal, like a spoiler. And the question to that is that, like, all of you have like a basic idea of like how your story is going to end, or do you have like a specific moment in the middle of the story that you have like worked out and you try to work towards that?
That's a good question. I think it really depends. With Lost Legion, I was building toward the ending very heavily.
I see.
Because I knew for the next book that I wanted to have the characters kind of the government fall apart. And so I needed to set up the government falling apart in this particular book, and I needed to have the characters fail at the end of book 1. But they managed to get out so that the story can continue. So it was kind of a stalemate to kind of like hook the reader and make them want to read more. That was the thing that I wanted to do with Lost Legion. With Prince of Winter, most of that was kind of figuring out. Originally, kind of, it was like I wanted to have this like Kingslayer character, or at least a Kingslayer persona. But then I realized, no, that doesn't make sense. So I cut that out and decided to shift it around to something else. So that there is no Kingslayer character. It's basically just this. Everybody thinks that this guy died naturally, but when in reality it was actually revenge. No details, but that's basically like how it is.
Oh, I see.
I think, but I did make sure to put a red herring prophecy in I think the beginning of the second act that pays off at the end of the book, because I wanted to kind of like and that actually like that prophecy motivates the villains to do certain things and kind of makes very specific decisions that end up biting them in the butt because they thought that prophecy meant one thing but it really meant another. It isn't long term bad, like it isn't like significant, but they end up making the prophecy happen just by reacting to it. That was one thing kind of in terms of like plot twists that I wanted to happen, that I need to kind of like set up payoff down on the line.
Oh, all right.
That's a good question. Let me think. Other things. I think at one point, like with Tempest of Shadow, I kind of put it like dropped hints throughout it and basically just kind of focused it around the slow unraveling of this person's psyche, because this eldritch force is basically just messing with her head, because it basically has no power, so the only thing it can really do is mess with her. And he's chosen her specifically because she's the reincarnation of the person who killed him, or at least like dispersed his power. And so all he's doing is just messing with her reality and making it so that she's like not capable of doing things. One thing that I did with prophecies, I didn't just have one prophecy. I had multiple. And instead of saying, oh, the hero must fulfill the prophecy and must do this and this and blah, 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 and must go to the plains of Gulukala to put the thing on the other thing and save the world. Instead, I did what I was reading in Wheel of Time, where instead of like things that people think they need to go along with, it's foreshadowing using symbolism for what's going to happen in the next couple of books. That's the idea that I went with the prophecies, where it's foreshadowing as opposed to the characters are going to, and they're kind of things that are pieced over by historians and scholars so that they can figure, okay, what's going to happen in the future, and they often get it wrong because they have no context for things. So that's kind of the idea. Prophecies mainly get hokey when it's just like there's one prophecy and there's one chosen one, and it's very nebulous what the prophecy is. I give specific lines of what the prophecy is, but I mainly keep them at like the beginning of chapters, so that it's kind of a kind of just a little sprinkling of like what people can figure out. People can try and figure out based on those prophecies what's going to happen in the next couple of books. And when they read the next couple of books, they'll be able to say, oh, okay, cool. So this is what he was doing. He was planning this, mostly planning this the whole time, or at least like created it in such a way that it would work out to like work out like this. So he kind of shows the planning stages. I think it was Lolly. You had a comparison to make, I believe.
Oh yeah, that was about how people react to a utilitarian.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a relevant comparison would be Tanya from Saga of Tanya the Evil, where the main character is very utilitarian in that their philosophy is basically be whoever you need to be and do whatever must be done to get forward in life, which includes, but it's not limited to, shooting civilians that refuse to leave the combat area in due time.
To
because
be
they are
or not
technically military combatants.
To be or not to be? Who do you want to be? Tommy Wiseau.
Ah,
I love that, man. We need to. I loved watching The Room with the Smudcast team. That was so funny.
I
But
still need to go through that. Yeah, it usually depends on how you frame the person's actions. Whilst Tanya is framed as this evil maniac with the occasional face mask break. It entirely depends on how you frame it, because if your character is mostly shown as a brooding asshole that will do absolutely everything, people are gonna think that's who he is or she is, even if they then later show to be somebody else, unless you put a lot of emphasis on their quote-unquote other side. So it entirely depends on how you frame it.
I think with Richard, at least, like the initial introduction of is him as a kid finding, like, going through like his picking his wolf, and then you see him as an adult and his leg is broken and he can't really walk around very easily, so he has to. The only way he's able to fight is on horseback, and he helps save a town from a group of marauders. And then you see him with his kids, and he's actually a really relatively good dad, where he's like able to like very like he has a very good relationship with his two daughters, and he also is like really has a good, and he has a pretty good relationship with his wife, where they're pretty much partners in their political endeavors. And it's kind of revealed later that he does a lot of the bad stuff that he's doing for the sake of his legacy for his kids. And one thing that I kind of made sure that to kind of put in was he's saying, like, when he does certain things, I think he justifies in his head doing a pretty terrible thing where he kills a lot of people. To the alternative is I meet them in battle or have a siege, which is going to drain the kingdom of money and resources and men, or I can set up just a massacre in a room that will cost me nothing. And so he chooses the latter option because he's thinking of the big picture and doesn't really care about like the short-term losses, as long as there's long-term gains.
Interesting. Well, from your description, he doesn't seem to be framed as a bad person, is he?
Not really. I try to keep it relatively morally gray, where he is able to, he says, like, I actually did a reading earlier where he decides, I have two possibilities. I either divert a river into this underground fortress and kill everybody inside, or I send my men in and try to assault the fortress and try to fight my way through several corridors with lots of murder holes and kill slits. So he decides, all right, I'm just going to divert the river into it and kill everybody inside instead of sending my men in.
I would say that does not seem... Well, the important part is that a normal reader, at least from my experience, seems to react basically to how the person is thinking. So if the options given are send in the people and have them die that way, maybe take 2 or 3 prisoners if you're lucky, or send in the river to kill them, the normal reader would probably go, all right, he's a bit of a douche, just sending in the river and killing everyone, no matter who's inside of it. But the alternative is sending in a bunch of people, at which point double the amount of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you have, unless the reader is particularly touchy in regards to what could be inside of said fortress that he's flooding, they would probably end up agreeing with the character and be like, yeah, that's the right choice to make.
Mm-hmm. There is kind of a dark moment at the end where it's kind of like they walk in and they see like civilian bodies, like women and children and non-soldier combatants, and he's clearly like shooken up by it, but he just says it was necessary. The alternative was sending my own men in to die in these corridors.
That actually does kind of remind me of a certain scene in a certain third-person shooter called Spec Ops, if you guys have played it.
I have not, but I think I know what collateral damage you're talking about.
No.
Yeah, that scene. So there's a scene in Spec Ops The Line where the main character does a bad thing, a very, very bad thing, to get through a camp of enemy soldiers, and there's no other way around it. And from there on, the entire narrative pushes on the idea that there is no other way while still giving you an alternative. But that entire scene basically haunts the main character for the rest of the game, as he does a very, very bad thing, despite thinking that there's no other way or there's no alternative. It still haunts him to his death.
I actually just realized that I haven't put that reading up. I put a thing of, I put the previous scene up there for reading.
Aww.
Well, anyway, I'll probably read it this weekend.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I think I got about 13 minutes left. What are some other things that like you'd like to chat about for the next 13 minutes before we close things out?
Oh yeah, the fan fiction reading.
Oh gosh. Okay, I will read The Lost Emperor fan fiction. Even it's basically a Game of Thrones what if thing, where Rhaegar Targaryen won the Battle of the Trident.
I just want to put that on pauses for a couple seconds because my dinner's ready, so I have to go. But I'm glad I could make it today because I work full-time most days. So today was accidentally a day off that I didn't know about until last Friday.
Wow.
I'm glad I could make it.
Oh, I'm glad to have had you on. Thank you for your questions, and I'm glad that I could help you with the Kindle thing.
Yeah, thanks.
Alrighty.
I'll talk to you later, guys.
All right.
Good to have you, Abigail.
Good to have you. Bye.
And yeah, Space Young, that's the scene I was referring to.
And
then there was
I'll read it. There's kind of some smut in it, but I will read it. I will read it, and I'll also read what is it, Lady Teresa and My Immortal. Those are the fan fictions I will read at this point in time.
There's also a fan fiction I can recommend you, Don. It's it's related to a video game series, but I don't know if you have played it.
The only video game series I have played is Battle for Middle-earth and Age of Empires. Those are the only ones.
Age of Empires is fantastic.
Yeah,
really now, Don, you didn't strike me as the shall we say living under the rock type in terms of video games.
I don't really I don't have I've never owned an Xbox. I've owned, the only times where I've seen games are the Harry Potter video game, the where it's a lot of problem solving, and the bit of Halo where you where it's mostly just teams where I just play with a few friends one couple of times, and then watching a friend of mine play Kingdom Hearts. That's pretty much my video game experience. And I played a little bit of Super Smash Brothers. That's pretty much it.
All right, so you're pretty much a video game virgin.
Pretty much, yeah. it's mostly just because I don't own an Xbox. I have a Wii, and I played like Bakugan, the Bakugan video game for the Wii, but and
Oh,
a
that's
few
a good
Wii
game.
games and a few like Wii games, but like yeah, I'm not I just haven't done like a lot of video games because it's just like I need I prefer RTS games because I can move around and I don't have to worry about like pressing a bunch of buttons at the same time. That's something that kind of frustrates me about video games sometimes.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
but
a
Wii
fair point.
Sports had a very compelling story.
Hey, Wii Fit Trainer had the best plot. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes. Like bowling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess so. They had an entire that bobblehead thing had a real character arc. It was very compelling.
Yeah.
I wonder what that Bubblehead 13 in the background story was.
Mm,
Maybe he
had
lost a
to
dog on
come
the
in
way
terms
here.
with the death of his wife.
yeah, or he's a secret serial killer who's just watching bowling things, scouting on his next victim.
Yes.
The woman
Alright.
down the road for you is looking very tasty.
But yeah, like not playing too much games is enviable because I feel like it's kind of an addiction.
Mm,
Like a lot of people are like kind of like can't really focus on their real matters that they want to do. So it's like games are just like in the way.
yeah. I'll sometimes like indulge in playing like a quick game of Infinity Blade or a few duels on Duel Links and just use up the free duels that I get every 4 hours.
Mhm.
But I just try to limit myself. Sometimes when there'll be like a new feature, like a new world that showed up, like they just barely put in Zexal, I'll just binge it and try and finish it as quickly as possible so that I don't have to like worry about like playing it again. So
But
for
to
a
be
while.
fair, indulgence in anything isn't very healthy.
But that's kind of it's kind of just like it'll be like I think I played like for 3 hours a day for a week in between like school stuff, old stuff, and streaming. That's pretty much what I did. Any other questions that we want to go to answer before we close out in about? I think.
Oh yeah, then I'm gonna post something that you're not gonna like in the special occasion on the Discord. For
Okay.
this is a curious choice for things you could read with the dramatic tone.
Oh dear.
It's basically an original story that uses previous characters, but it has nothing related to the original.
I'm considering finding the Aragon fan fiction that I found where it's where it's basically a new and original female character and a green dragon are just inserted and this person, for some reason, the author decided to make Arya the elf a complete horrible nightmare of a person.
Oh man, Aragorn. Oh.
Too late, Courier. It is done.
Don't do
You see
don't
it.
do it. Don't.
Yeah,
You
this
might
is
have some insight into it.
I will be interested to read it on stream, but I have a lot of informational books. I pretty much have content to keep me going for years and years because I still have framing monsters to get through.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the story I was talking about earlier that was worse than my Immortal by a long shot.
So Lally, have you gotten to experience the joys of framing monsters yet?
I have not heard of it till you mention it.
Don has done quite a few streams already about it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go through the backlog.
Yeah, we so basically we've spent I think
6 maybe?
Yeah, 6 streams on this. It's basically we read like 10 pages of stream because there's so much like weird word salad, like, and there's so much like leftist racism in there that it's nuts. Like King Kong is an analogy for black male rapists wanting to force themselves on white women.
What? I'm so good already. I'm just what? All right. So Broken Fangs isn't that bad, but it is certainly a poorly written mess. And as a person, referring to you, that has published books, you'll probably get a laugh out of it.
Yeah. But basically, like
Neph says it 3 hours long each. Is that
yes.
true?
Yes, they're about 3 hours long each.
We managed to push through 3 chapters in like 5 or 6 hours. Jesus, how bad is this?
Okay, so Kong, Race, Rape, and Revenge is a section in this book of where he goes in, and apparently, like, for some reason, King Kong is his favorite movie of all time, specifically the first one. And yet he makes it, and then he reads it as weird reading. He does a weird quote-unquote reading of it, where it's basically a black man analog, where he is enamored of the white woman and wants to force himself on him, and that plays into the racist stereotypes of the 1930s. Like,
well, of course, you see, King Kong is a message about white supremacy.
Yeah.
underneath all that hair, it's a white soul.
And it even like makes kind of an analogy between a lynching and Kong's death.
What? At some point, you have to go. I should just make a button to press whenever somebody makes a comparison that is really reaching for it. Just going, just because you can do it doesn't mean they should.
Or when he makes the analogy that Jurassic Park is about the patriarchal family unit being assaulted by monstrous women.
Is that real?
Yes, that is real. That is an actual quote from this book.
Oh, are you holding it in your hands, or are you? Do you have it digitally or something? Because you better not pay money for this thing. Oh Jesus! Why?
Yes,
because nobody is. This book is so bad that there are no piratable PDFs online.
Oh Lord, help me! It's Alien Creed all over again.
Oh, he has an analogy
I
for
actually
alien.
had.
Oh, guess what?
You first time.
Guess what? Guess what he reads as the alien queen as an analogy for.
Evil black woman birthing too many babies. Oh yes. God damn it! I've heard that argument before. That's the bad part.
Yeah, basically. Okay, let me find it. It's basically so. Where is? Okay, the misogyny of the final scene of Aliens has often been analyzed on a psychosexual level as the refusal of the monstrous feminine, of the archaic devouring mother, but it also has a historically specific political meaning. If Ripley is the prototypical upper middle class wasp, the alien queen bears a suspicious resemblance to a favorite scapegoat of the Reagan-Bush era, the black welfare mother, that parasite on the economy whose uncurbed reproductive rate reduced hard-paying taxpayers to bankruptcy. And for proof, let me show you that somebody was dumb enough to write this.
Oh my Lord! I think I actually. Oh, gee, how do I describe my bafflement in words? It's like, oh God, I could. No, my brain. The fan fiction didn't hurt this much. Watching Ruby 4 seasons straight didn't hurt my brain this much. It's like I'm being assaulted from all sides by stupidity.
Yep, and supposedly this guy is a college English professor.
Oh, would it be?
That's actually very believable because like today's professors have like this kind of like mentality. But yeah, the fact that like it wasn't piratable reminds me of like the Last Jedi book, because I did have to do like a research, because like they were like the theories like how Rey got her powers, and I was like so interested, like how the hell, where can I find this book? I couldn't find it online. Nobody uploaded it, so I had to pay €5 to get the book.
Oh man, I just found another one in the Dragon Ladies section where he analyzes Jurassic Park and Aliens, where in Backlash, the Undeclared War Against American Women, published in 1991, Susan Faldy meticulously excavate one pillar of the rhetoric. The 1980s assault against the women's libertarian movement, an assault that both demonized and terrorized working women, childless women, and single women in a cultural-wide effort to push back women into their acceptable roles, whether as daddy's girl or the fluttery romantic, active nester, or passive love object.
What the hell?
And supposedly this is in a book. This is in the chapter about Jurassic Park and aliens.
I would like to just. All right. First off, I'm pretty sure at this point, this kind of person educating people, quote unquote, could be considered child abuse. Second off,
well, it's college, so he's a college professor, not a high school professor.
All right, so just abuse.
Yeah, let's go.
Second off, I'm pretty sure wouldn't the argument entirely shatter if you ask, all right, why are you projecting these minorities onto horrible creatures that are like they aren't screaming Black Lives Matter or whatever. They aren't feeling black or white or whatever stereotypes. They're literally inhuman creatures filling a role as like antagonists. So by you comparing them to them, you're saying that you actually think that black women are aliens, queens. Like even if he's claiming that's what they're framing her as, just by him making the comparison means that he sees them at face. Ah, yes, black women.
Yeah, that's why I say this book is an example of leftist racism.
Wait, this book is from 2005?
Yeah, it's.
Yep.
This sounds like the jargon. This sounds like jargon I hear from the news today, where the professor writes a new book about the misogyny of monsters.
Basically, his thesis with this book is to prove that fantasy films, even though they seem like they're timeless, they're really insidious methods of cultural and social alienation.
Wait, don't tell me he has a page on Terminator or Predator.
No, he doesn't. So the specific ones he chooses are the Ray Harryhausen Sinbad trilogy as an example of fears regarding Islam and the Arab nation.
What? Maybe it's just me, but I went away from Sinbad not thinking of the Muslims and Islam. I was thinking, hey, this is pretty cool.
Not the DreamWorks animated version, the Ray Harryhausen one from the 1970s, I think. 1970s.
Oh, that one.
And then you have Dragon Ladies, fantasy film and family values in relation to Jurassic Park and Aliens, fantasy film and mental illness. Oh, The Promise of Miracles, class conflict and technology in. Guess what the movie he chooses to use is?
What was it for?
Dracula.
Technology and class conflict in X. What do you think the X is?
I have on the tip of my tongue, Blade Runner.
Wizard of Oz.
What?
Wizard of Oz?
You're shitting me. You're shitting me.
What?
You're taking the piss, Don. You're taking the absolute piss. Hang on. Technology and class in the wizard. Lol is gonna have to do this. He's gonna need to therapy to forget this. The Freak.
I imagine that one is for Lord of the Rings and X-Men.
Ah,
How
Like,
much do
yes,
you
I-
have left from that book?
We have about 100 pages left.
Oh God.
so
We've
at
been-
least
we've
10
got-
streams left.
Yeah, we've gotten through, and these chapters are long. They're like the introduction alone is 20 pages long.
So the first 2 streams were just the introduction.
Yes,
Just to tell his excuses of why he's committing this crime against humanity.
pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Holy Jesus.
what? What?
I'm just still thinking, how did the hippie age was a mistake. We should just press the nuke button at the 70s. There's
Yeah.
nothing of value when these nutters are around writing stuff like this. Clearly, we made a mistake somewhere. We need to reset it all the way back to 0.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think this is a good point for me to say this has been fun. Traumatizing, but fun.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's basically Wizard of Oz expresses Depression era fears of lower class revolution. That's what I think he's reading of Wizard of Oz. Post Ray Harryhausen's Sinbad trilogy is post-war America's vilification of the Middle East. Jurassic Park is joining in the late 20th century attack on the women's rights movement. And 12 Monkeys is furthering the image of the homeless, mentally ill as dangerous deviants.
Projection. This is all projection and it's hurting my brain.
Yeah. Yeah, and like there admittedly like this is pretty bad, but we were doing like a bunch of School of Movies streams, like specifically just on their 2.5-hour podcast on The Last Jedi, and people were saying, please stop doing School of Movies, we want Framing Monsters instead.
All right, so from a 1 to actually from a 1 to no, please stop. How bad is School of Movies?
They're worse than Patrick.
Oh my lord. Oh
Yeah.
no, that's a record you don't want.
But
I
are they
think-
worse than Movie Bob?
They actually have had Movie Bob on their streams.
No.
Oh no.
On their podcasts, like on their Godzilla King of the Monsters, their admittedly, he wasn't as bad as he usually is.
Yeah, because he isn't writing his nonsense at the time, so he has to improvise.
Yeah, so he's on their Batman v Superman, and it's like, okay, it's fine, it's not that bad, and he's kind of just mostly on their Amazing Spider-Man 2 podcast, where he's mostly just discussing the industry, where he's actually got like okay references. It's actually just like what tricked me into believing, oh, Movie Bob's not that bad, and then I actually watched his content and I'm just like, wow, this guy's insane.
I mean, I was introduced to Movie Bob. I posted a suggestion. Like, no, I didn't even post a suggestion. I told the guys in the Smutcast server where I was like, after somebody suggested a Movie Bob video, where it's like, wow, where did he go so wrong? Wasn't there a good point? It was like his first videos of like the big picture was how Halo is a white supremacist video game series.
Yeah.
I was like, the guy was always another, and that was how I was introduced to him, by Halo being white supremacist. He's an absolute clown fiesta. But he
Yes,
never.
but
Okay.
I feel like Renegade Cut takes it to another level.
Oh, Renegade Cut is just by the description, he appears to be just as bad, if not worse, than Framing Monsters. Because at least with Framing Monsters, that's just an echo chamber that is the book. Effectively, it is just an echo chamber when you're not looking out at sources. You're just sitting in a room, just keeps writing and writing and writing. Renegade Cut doesn't have the excuse. He's constantly getting feedback on how insane his stuff is, and he refuses to change.
Yeah, he refuses, but it's like it's for some reason like everyone from Channel Loss turned into like this political cesspool.
Oh wow! It's Neph Champion says that he's much worse in the movie, Bob. Wow.
Yeah, I 100% on that. Like,
yeah,
because the sad thing is that I looked up some videos from Renegade Cut from 2015. He made like a review of The Seventh Seal, which is like a really old Swedish movie, and he not only sounded normal, but like he never made a single political statement in the video. It was all about the movie and the themes and like what it's about. So his downfall happened right after Trump was elected.
From derangement syndrome seems to be it seems to be a legit illness.
He definitely suffers in that.
So we recently did a commentary for Bram Stoker's Dracula, and Renegade Cut did an 11-minute video, and I'm thinking about covering that at some point because I know that the people who I stream with are going to yell really loud at some of the
Absolutely
with it. Yeah. So, anything else, real quick, before we close things out?
I guess. How would you get out of writer's block?
I just
how do you get out of writer's block?
I just write 6 books at the same time and rotate through them.
Oh my, master technician.
So just constantly be working on something different.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, that's one way to fix it.
So my current like word count for I got like somewhere around like 3,500 words for my newest book, but the other ones are Sunkiller is 13k words, War of Shadows is 41k, then Dreams of Dragons is 43k, Wrath of the Dragon is 78k, Queen of the Ashes is 77k, Reign of Shadows is almost 11k, and then Hammer of the Sea is like 3,500 words.
All right, so you're just constantly shifting through them.
Yep.
I mean, I guess it helps with creativity. Don't have to constantly bog yourself down on one topic. You just immediately switch to another.
Mm-hmm. And kind of like I just will write various books in the same series. Like Dreams of Dragonlords and Wrath of the Dragon are books 4 and 5 of my Dragonlord series. And I just kind of wrote them at the same time. I just kind of had to keep in mind the plot points, a lot of the plot points that I have planned for Dreams of Dragonlords, even though I haven't finished it yet. And same with War of the Shadow and Reign of Shadow, where they're books 2 and 3 in a trilogy. I just kind of have a few scenes written in Reign of Shadow where I kind of like, okay, these are the specific moments that I want to happen. I'll just kind of write toward them when the time comes.
All right.
As well as like kind of saying I don't have to write it linearly. I can jump around in the story. And like if I have an idea, I'll be like, okay, write this, write toward it, figure out where it's going. That's kind of the plan. So, and I have the ending written for the whole Dark Champion trilogy. I just need at least like the final chapter, the epilogue, but I don't have like the final battle written up, though I have it pretty well planned out in my head. So,
all right, that's good to hear.
So that's pretty much how I.
Maybe one day I will get to read those books.
One day in a distant future.
Oh yeah, I still need to catch up with my reading because like I have been like negligent.
Oh no, you're fine. It's totally fine. I don't have a strict timetable. I do know that like the first book of the Dark Champion trilogy is right up on Amazon if anybody wants to purchase it.
Right, I think. Yeah, I don't have any other questions.
Alrighty.
Me neither.
Alrighty. Well, thank you both for coming on. It's been very fun just having this little chill hangout stream, as opposed to like the vast preparation for the other ones that I had. Well, preparation, which is mostly just making a Prezi usually. But anyway, thank you both for coming, and I have to say one last thing to the chat.